Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today, we're going to interview legendary Wall Street investor Jim Rogers. Jim's success has been nothing less than historic. Years ago, he moved overseas and now resides in Singapore. He is the co-founder of the Quantum Fund and the Soros Fund, which he created in partnership with billionaire George Soros. He routinely appears on CNBC and other news outlets to give us analysis of the business world and the stock market. And he is really honest, really candid, and most importantly, he's often right. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so I encourage you to click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we upload a new episode. I'd also like to tell you about a service called HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a great service that allows you to purchase live phone calls from your favorite celebrities, so check them out. It's something you can buy for yourself or as a gift for someone you love. Now, let's say hello to Jim Rogers. Hello, Jim, and welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I'm delighted to be here, John. I'm fine. It's nighttime here. You know, when we finish, I'll go to the disco.
Okay. Well, so I know it's not your nature to brag or boast about your achievements, but you have had an incredible level of success in your career. You and George Soros started the Soros Fund. Tell us how difficult it was to do that, and would it still be possible for you to do the same thing in today's business environment, or have things changed too dramatically?
Well, John, first of all, that was over 40 years ago that happened. So you might as well ask me about my first wife. Speaking of which, I made lots of mistakes in my life, including my first wife, who was a serious mistake. Yeah, of course. There are plenty of people who can and will start successful businesses, including successful investment businesses. It's been happening for centuries, and it can happen again. Now, many people try, and many do not make it, but it certainly can be done. I drove around the world a couple of times. I ran into a lot of people trying to do it. Most of them didn't make it, but I know it can be done, and other people can do it as well. I know that some people can play for the New York Yankees. Not me, not me, but I know it can be done and it will be done.
So to say that the current economy is unprecedented would be an understatement. Not even during past world wars have governments shut down the entire economy of their nations. There are millions of workers and business people who've been devastated by what's happened. If someone were to come up to you, and I'm sure they do on a regular basis, if they were to come up to you and say that they've lost everything, their jobs, their homes, everything, and ask you for advice on how they can restart and reactivate their lives under these circumstances, what would you tell them?
Well, it's happened to me, and it's happened to many people that we've lost everything. I mean, early in my career, I lost everything once, didn't like it, didn't have much choice but to start over, save money and start it over. I would give the same advice to anybody who's got these problems now. Figure out what you do best and start over.
What businesses or sectors of the economy do you think will recover most quickly?
Well, most quickly will be things like they've been hit the worst. I live in Singapore. You know, 6 months ago, the airport was closed. There were no flights. Now, if there are 50 flights a week, that's an improvement. So you're going to see travel, tourism, transportation, entertainment, shipping, things like that will recover faster than many other things, mainly because they were destroyed. You know, if you go to 0, you rise back up to 6, and you're getting better. But it's a long way back to 100. But we will fly to London again. We will fly to Tokyo. We're not going to take the boat. These things will recover.
Do you still have the same faith in the stock market under the current circumstances that you did in the past? Or do you feel more comfortable now moving into physical assets like gold or silver?
Well, it sounds like that's a question of timing. At least I'm interpreting that way. The U.S. stock market is near its all-time high. So no, I don't have as much confidence in the U.S. stock market at all-time highs. I mean, silver's down 45% from its all-time high. I certainly have more confidence in investing in silver down 45% than I do in U.S. stocks at all-time highs. Sugar is down 75 or 80% from its all-time high. I certainly have more confidence in investing in something down 75 or 80% than I do in something making all-time highs. The Japanese market is down 30%. I have much more confidence in the Japanese stock market than the American stock market right now because of prices.
Do you still believe that the dollar is still a strong safe haven currency, or do you think other things are beginning to look a little more appealing at this point?
John, the U.S. dollar is not a safe haven. It is perceived as a safe haven. The United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debts are skyrocketing every day. I own a lot of U.S. dollars. So now you're going to say, well, why do you own U.S. dollars? And I do because people, for historic reasons, think of it as a safe haven. And if you compare it to the euro or many other currencies, nobody wants to own many other currencies. So the US dollar has the perception of being a place to be, and when turmoil gets worse, people will flock to the US dollar. Now it's going to get overpriced, and I hope I'm smart enough to sell it if it gets overpriced, because no world reserve currency has lasted more than 100, 150 years. US dollar is getting towards the end of its tenure. I don't like saying this, John. I'm an American like you, but I have to face facts.
By the way, just out of curiosity, before we go on, how has the pandemic affected small and mid-sized retailers in Singapore? Are you seeing a lot of closures?
Well, of course, yes. We've seen closures. Many people had to close because it was lockdown here, but many are not reopening. On the other hand, the ones that have reopened are doing very well because there's less competition, now, and also because it's difficult to travel. And Singapore has been a very international economy with lots of travel. So if people cannot travel, they go to the restaurants, they go to the shops. Now, foreigners aren't coming, but there are plenty of Singaporeans, I assure you. So it's difficult to get a table in a restaurant in Singapore these days.
Really? Interesting.
Yes.
So I read an analysis recently that compared the solvency and strength of the largest banks around the world and was surprised to see how few American banks were even on the list. I believe that a Canadian bank called TD Bank, which has many branches in the US, was considered safer and more solvent at this time than any of the US banks. Do you still trust the US banking system, or do you prefer foreign banks?
Well, John, I anyway cannot make a geographic distinction. Some American banks are very sound. Some Singapore banks are very sound. On the other hand, they're going to be banks that go bankrupt. I assure you, China's been the strongest economy in the world for the past 40 years. To see bankruptcies in China, but you're also going to see people come to this very, very strong. I, anyway, cannot make a generalization like that. I will say the United States is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and our banking system reflects that as well. Unfortunately, many American banks have got huge debts, and I'm afraid we're going to have some shocks in the future. But the same is going to happen in Japan. I mean, Japanese are gigantic debt. And most people would say, well, Japan cannot fail because the government won't let them. Well, okay, I've heard that before. I can see that many banks in many countries have staggering debt, but I can also see that there's still some people who are running a tight ship.
Do you believe the residential real estate market will continue to see prices fall further? And if so, how much further?
Well, John, where? I mean, yes, in Iowa, I suspect Iowa's going to be a great place because agriculture is going to have a very good 10 years or so going forward. I'm not sure that the financial parts of New York City are going to have a great future going forward. So it depends on where. If you're talking about agricultural parts of China, fabulous opportunities. If you're talking about the city of London, the financial district of London, I'm not so bullish. So it depends on where.
Do you think that New York and California real estate markets are essentially radioactive for the next few years because of what's going on there?
I haven't been to either of those places in a while, but from what I read and what my friends tell me, I don't think buying real estate in New York right now is a wise thing to do. And likewise in much of California. I mean, we all know that San Francisco turned into a bubble. I would not be buying property in places like that. I prefer to buy. I don't want to live in Iowa, but if you're talking about an investment, I would suspect that buying property in Iowa is a lot smarter than buying something in San Francisco.
Now, you could literally live anywhere you wanted to, and yet you have chosen Singapore. Tell me about living in Singapore at this point in time, as compared to some of the other places that you've been to. Has it been primarily a financial decision, a taxation decision, or do you simply like it there?
Well, for Americans, there's really not much such a thing as a taxation situation, because if you're in America, no matter where you live and no matter where your income is, you still pay American taxes. It's one of the few countries in the world that does that. And many people think it's not fair, but whether it's fair or not, that is the law. So there's no such thing for most people as a taxation geography if you're an American citizen. Everybody else in the world can do that. Singapore, I wanted my children to speak Mandarin. I could see that China was going to have a great century, and I wanted to prepare my children for the 21st century. They were learning Mandarin in New York, but I realized that if I was serious, I was going to have to take them to a place where they had to speak Chinese. The Chinese cities are too polluted. They're filthy. The air, the water, everything is polluted. So we looked around. In Singapore, they speak English and they speak Mandarin. Since I don't speak Mandarin, Singapore seemed great for me. It's an unbelievably efficient and well-run country, as I'm sure you know. Everything works here. The great healthcare, great education, great airport, everything works. And so it's been a good decision for us. We're happy. My wife's happy. My children are happy. So this has worked out for us. And my children speak astonishing Chinese.
Is Singapore more politically aligned with China or the U.S.?
No, the U.S. The American Navy is parked right here in the port. The population is of Chinese heritage, but as far as the government are concerned, when push comes to shove, they're aligned with the U.S. government. Now, will that be true in 5 years, 55 years? I don't know. As I said, the population is 76% Chinese ethnic heritage. But at the moment, if push comes to shove, the U.S. would be the ally.
How is the cost of living there? Is it as expensive as people say?
Well, some things are very expensive. Automobiles are extremely expensive. You know, you buy a car, it's like 4 or 5 times what it costs in America, or even more, because it's a small country. But some things are a lot cheaper. I mean, you can have help is very, very cheap. You can get, people can have 3, 4 maids and drivers and everything else. So some things are very cheap. Some things are very expensive.
When was the last time you visited the U.S. and how much has it changed since you resided there?
It's probably been a year, but that's because I cannot go anywhere. I would have gone, to the U.S., but it's very difficult to travel anywhere. My wife and children just came back from visiting her parents in North Carolina. They were there in November for Thanksgiving and December, but I have not been back for a year. And last time I was there, I could see the effects of what was happening. It didn't look good. And my wife and children say that, the effects of the virus are pretty clear.
So my sources are telling me that one of the few industries and businesses that is managing to make more money than ever during this health crisis is the narcotics business. Apparently, the more stressed out people become, the more legal and illegal drugs they purchase. I've heard that during the market crash of 2008, it was the government bailout that kept the ATM machines working. And it was also, and these are just rumors, it was also the infusion, the deliberate infusion of billions of dollars of cartel drug money directly into the US banking system, which kept the lights on. Do you believe that? And do you think we're headed in the same direction again?
Well, I don't use drugs and I don't buy and sell drugs, so I don't whatever you call them. So I don't really know. But I do know that in 2008, the central bank in the United States spent staggering amounts of money bailing out the financial system. I railed against it, and I would rail against it now. In my view, that's not the way capitalism is supposed to work. It's welfare for the rich. And I don't really approve of welfare for the rich. Now, you say it's the drug cartel. If it was, that's what happened, I did not know it, but I certainly know the American Central Bank and other central banks just stuffed huge amounts of money into the financial system. And it's worse now, John. They're doing even more now. The United States central government and central bank, oh my gosh, trillions, that's with a T. Trillions of dollars are being stuffed into the financial system. Do I approve? Absolutely not. It's not good. I'll tell you, John, it's a good time to be old because young people are inheriting huge problems in their lifetimes.
Do you believe that the Chinese economy is getting better or worse than it was 2 years ago?
No, well, better 2 years ago. Well, everything collapsed when the virus hit, and the Chinese economy, according to the numbers, has been the best economy in the world in 2020. I have no idea if they're lying or not. I just know what all governments say. And if you listen to governments, the Chinese government has been less bad than any other economy in 2020. And it continues that way now. When I go on the internet, I see the shops are full, I see the streets are full. So something is happening in China better than in other places, or less bad than in other places.
So I keep hearing rumors that there are a significant number and percentage of Fortune 500 companies, hedge funds, and other investment groups that are currently operating in a state of undeclared bankruptcy. And some of them are going to go off the cliff no matter how much money the government pumps into them. What are your thoughts on that matter?
Well, you're exactly right. I know that there are a lot of zombie companies, not just in the US, but all over the world, because I know what happened. You know what happened. Many places closed, many airports closed. Lots of companies suffered greatly, and there are zombie companies right now that are being propped up by governments or somebody, their banks or somebody else. No, this is not over yet. John, the next time we have an economic problem, it's going to be the worst in my lifetime because the debt now is so staggering. In 2008, we had a problem because of too much debt. John, since 2008, the debt has gone up many, many times. So the next time we have a problem, it's going to be horrendous.
So let's explore that for a second. You said it's going to be horrendous. Give me some forecasts and predictions for what horrendous will look like to the middle class, to the lower class. How hard will that impact be?
You're going to see many people. I'm talking about worldwide, including the US.
Yes.
We're going to see many companies close, many people lose their jobs. We're going to see institutions that have been around for a long time, decades, centuries. In 2008, Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. Well, Lehman Brothers has been around 150 years, John. Bear Stearns went bankrupt. Bear Stearns been around 80 or 90 years. I mean, these things have been here forever. The next time we're going to see similar kinds of things happen like that. Institutions, museums, schools, hospitals, we're going to see a lot of things disappear that have been around a long time because debt is so much higher now.
Do you think the banks will limit withdrawals? In America, do you think the FDIC will continue to honor their $100,000 coverage? How severe will it hit the banks?
Well, banks in America and other places are already starting to limit the amount of money you can withdraw, and certainly the amount you can withdraw without telling everybody in sight what you're doing. So that's already happening. The U.S. government has passed a law that says the bank, if they have to, can confiscate your money to survive. Your money is theirs if they have to. So no, it's not going to be fun when we go forward. I'm speaking specifically about the U.S. at the moment, but some other countries have passed laws like that too. And the banking system worldwide, many countries anyway, has huge amounts of debt now.
Do you think the situation is similar in Singapore with their banks?
No, the Singapore bank, well, again, there's some American banks which are very sound. There are others that are very, very indebted and that extended themselves a great deal. The Singapore banks, from what we know and read, are much sounder. The international rating agencies, for the most part, would rate the Singapore banks much higher than most banks in the U.S. and other countries.
So tell me about your investment philosophy today versus a year ago, pre-COVID. Has it changed or shifted dramatically?
Well, my investment philosophy is the same. I try to buy low and sell high. The question is what's low and what's high. The different areas, I said before, world travel stopped, entertainment stopped. So I've been buying airlines much more than I would have 2 years ago, 5 years ago, because airlines closed down, the stocks collapsed. Whenever there's a disaster, there's also an opportunity often. So restaurants, travel, I bought Chinese wine companies because people stopped going to the bars, people stopped going to the restaurants. So hopefully all of these things will have a comeback. I bought Russian shipping companies because shipping stopped. Shipping collapsed. And in my investment career, I have learned if you buy a disaster that's going to survive, you're probably going to do okay.
So tell me about the logic there behind the purchase of the Russian shipping companies. If the shipping industry freezes up and Main Street is closing down, what caused you to believe that it would recover significantly enough to reactivate the shipping industry? Did you just think this was an artificial force impacting the economy and that it would pass?
I certainly thought it was an artificial force. It was hitting the whole world. I said that the Singapore airport was closed. I'd never seen it closed before. So yes, and that's the same. That was my view of shipping worldwide, restaurants, etc. By the way, shipping is booming right now. It's astonishing how hot shipping is. Likewise, I said before, in Singapore, you can't get a table in a restaurant. They're all so packed now, despite what we both know is happening in the world. So will it be this way in 3 years? I doubt it very seriously, but I'm worried about 3 weeks, 3 months from now, right now. Let me get through 2021 before I worry about 2023.
Are you significantly invested in the markets, or are you setting aside a lot of cash on the side?
I am invested in the markets. When you say the market, I mean, not the U.S. I'm not buying in the U.S. now. The U.S. is making all-time highs. But Japan, China, Russia, some agriculture, there's some places that I hope are cheap.
Okay. Do you use advisors, or is this strictly you making these decisions?
I do some advisors, but mainly, no, I make my own investment decisions. No advisors at all, if that's what you mean. No.
What do you think is a more viable investment for everyday people at this time? Is it the tech stocks? Or is it, entrepreneurship, starting a business? Where do you see some light? Where do you see the brightest light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I know that if you want to be a successful investor, John, you don't listen to me or somebody on the internet. You only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. Now, I know that right now, many new investors are coming into the markets in Korea, Japan, America, all over the world. And they're all hot to buy Apple and Samsung and Tencent. They're buying these stocks and they're all going through the roof. I have seen bubbles before. I've been to this movie before, John. I know that we're now developing bubbles in some areas of the world, stock markets. Not a complete bubble yet. I mean, there's still stocks that are down. But I can see, as I say, I've been to this movie before. If you know what you're doing, fine. But most people don't that are investing now. I'm already getting taxi drivers asking me about the market. I'm already seeing the receptionist at the dentist asking me about the market. No, these are signs that I have seen before. And these are things that are very worrisome. If you want to be a successful investor, John, you don't listen to hot tips. Now, everybody wants a hot tip. Everybody wants to be rich this week. Hot tips will ruin you, totally ruin you. If you want to be successful, you only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. Boring, boring, boring. Give me one hot tip, just one hot tip. Nope, I'm not going to give anybody one hot tip. If you want to be successful, invest in what you yourself know a lot about.
So should I infer from that you're not investing in the tech market?
I am not. No. I mean, John, I've seen bubbles before. That doesn't mean they can't double from here. That's what happens in bubbles. But I know these are overpriced, expensive stocks where lots of uninformed money is pouring in. Now, if you know how to play a bubble, do it. But I'm not going to. It's not with my money. No.
Jim, how many times a week do people, friends, and even strangers approach you and pitch you with business ideas that they want you to fund?
Well, I not so much anymore because they know I won't do it. They know I do. I've turned down nearly everybody I know. I've been around a long time. So yeah, occasionally, but not so much anymore because people know I won't do it.
Do you invest in Bitcoin? Do you believe in Bitcoin?
I have never invested in any cryptocurrency. I certainly wish I had, John. I can see what's happened to them. First of all, I want you to understand that many cryptocurrencies have already disappeared. There were hundreds of them historically in the past decade. Many of them have disappeared and gone to zero. We all read about Bitcoin. We don't read about all the ones that went where everybody lost 100% of their money. My view of Bitcoin is, first of all money is going to be on the computer. It already is in China. John, you cannot take a taxi in China with money. You cannot buy an ice cream in China with money. You have to have your phone money or your computer money in China already. So it's going to happen that way, and it is happening that way. But in my view, being a little bit of a student of history, I know that if cryptocurrencies become money, the governments will outlaw them. Historically, governments do not like to lose control. Governments like to have a monopoly on money. And the governments, if some of these cryptocurrencies become real money and threats to governments, the governments will outlaw them. Now, the crypto guys say, listen, we're smarter than the government, and they are. Of course, they're smarter than the government. But the government's got the guns, John. The crypto guys don't have any tanks. The governments do. And if it comes to that, then they will be outlawed. So I am not buying cryptocurrencies at this, certainly not Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin skyrocketed. I mean, I've talked to you before about bubbles. I've seen bubbles. I know what they look like. This is not rational investing when anything skyrockets straight up like that.
Is China 100% cashless? Is everything electronic at this point, or are they still circulating cash?
No, there is still cash, but not much. Very, very little. I tried to buy an ice cream in Beijing over a year ago. A year ago, poor woman couldn't sell me an ice. She didn't know what to do. She'd never seen money. I mean, she was young. She gave me the ice cream, John. She was so embarrassed, this foreigner. I had Chinese money. She didn't know what to do with it. Couldn't take it. She gave me the ice cream.
So they're phasing it out completely, it appears.
Oh, yeah. But every country, nearly every country in the world, John, is working on this now. The U.S. government's working on this. And we're behind. The U.S. is behind other countries. No, but in 5 years, there won't be any money. It'll be all government. It'll be computer money.
You mentioned recently that you didn't like to invest in or travel to Russia in the past, but now you do. What has changed? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I first went to Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain, behind the Iron Curtain a long time ago when the communists were still there. And I came away saying, this is never going to work. And I traveled across the Soviet Union several times and I could see it's a disaster, total disaster. But now something has changed in the past 4 or 5 years in the Kremlin. They understand capitalism. They understand they have to encourage investing. They have to understand people to be successful. And Russia has huge resources, gigantic resources, not much debt. It's not like many countries. I mean, nobody would lend money to the communists, John. So they don't have huge debt like America or Japan or some countries. So I am now optimistic. And I even like Moscow and Petersburg and a few cities.
So there's a very popular reality show on in the United States. And what this show does is they take very, very successful millionaires and they deposit them in a strange city, usually a highly impoverished city. They give them $100. They're not allowed to use their name, their social media, or any of their wealth. And they're tasked with trying to build their fortune back to $1 million from ground zero in 90 days. If this were to happen to you, do you think you could do it without the benefit of your resources, your name, your reputation?
Well, I mean, sure. Obviously, it can be done because people are doing it. I haven't done it. I've never tried, never thought about it. But obviously, if the show wouldn't exist if somebody didn't do it. I mean, no, of course, it can be done. In my particular case, I hope. I mean, I don't think I'd go and try to start a restaurant and succeed in the 90 days, but I would probably start trying to invest. That's something I know a little bit about.
So you wouldn't do the restaurant. Would you go into the market and start trading again? Would you start to try to open up another type of business?
If I only have $100 in 90 days?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. What else can I do? I'm not going to open a dentist office in 90 days and make $1 million. Not much I can do except hopefully go into the financial markets, commodities, stocks, whatever, and maybe make the money that way.
So, Jim, other than continuing to make very serious money, what do you like to do for fun these days?
You know, John, I never had children. I thought children were a horrible waste of time and money. I was never going to have children. I felt sorry for all these poor saps I knew who had children. So I was never going to make that mistake. I was totally wrong. I had my first child when I was 60, and I was totally wrong about children. So now, for me, my children are more fun than anything. And if I could do only one thing, it would be things with my children.
Interesting. You know, John Lennon, when he took a break from his career, he retreated to the Dakota Hotel with his wife, Yoko. And the thing he enjoyed most was playing with his children all day long. So, you know, that's the way it is.
I know. And as I said, I was totally wrong. I used to feel so sorry for my friends who had children. Totally 100% wrong. Now, better do it at the right time, obviously, because children have ruined many lives. But in my case, since I was older, had some experience, a little bit of money, for me, it was a wonderful, wonderful thing to do.
So now I'm just going to ask some random questions. Do you think there's a lot of upside on silver or gold?
Yes, I will be buying, in fact, probably some more silver today or tomorrow. Yes, I will buy more of both, but silver is cheaper. Silver's down 45% from its all-time high. Gold is only down 10% from its all-time high. I will be buying more of both. Who knows about the timing?
So do you buy physical gold and silver or just stocks?
Right here.
So do you buy it online and have it shipped somewhere?
Yeah, but I can, in Singapore, I mean, there are plenty of places I can buy silver and gold, and I do have it shipped. Depends on what I want to buy. I mean, I've had gold and silver shipped to me from the U.S. Silver coins, likewise, but Chinese coins. But you can buy them just about anywhere in the world now.
Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything you would like to promote?
Promote?
Yes,
No.
promote. No,
I don't have anything to sell.
all right.
No, I mean, you can buy my books. I have some books, yeah. But, John, I've had 5 #1 bestsellers in Korea and Japan in the last 2 years, but they're all in Japanese and Korean. your viewers are not going to buy my books in Japanese or Korean. So I don't have anything. You could buy my English books, but no, I don't have anything to sell.
All right. Well, listen, it has been a pleasure having you on the John Ark Show. I want to wish you all the best and say that you're always welcome back on the show, sir.
Well, John, I've had fun. It's been a delight. So I hope we can do it again sometime.
I'm looking forward to it. Have a good day, and we will talk to you soon.